Hey guys, so I'm going to cover all of Lab 6, which is the abdominal region. And we're going to start out with the abdominal viscera. So first off, you have the esophagus, which is this part here. The esophagus goes through this sphincter, and this sphincter is called the cardiac sphincter. It's also called the lower esophageal sphincter or the gastroesophageal sphincter. And that goes into the stomach. This part here, this region here is called the cardia. This region of the stomach here is called the fundus. This is the body of the stomach. This is the pylorus. And this part here is the pyloric sphincter. These folds inside of the stomach are called rugae. You also have the lesser curvature and the greater curvature. So after the stomach, you're going to go into the small intestine. I'm going to take this off. The first part of the small intestine is called the duodenum, and that's this region here. The duodenum goes into the jejunum, which is this darker pink, and that goes into the ileum, which is this lighter pink. So after the ileum, you're going to enter the large intestine. Put this back on. The first part of the large intestine is called the cecum. And it goes from the small intestine to the large intestine through this ileocecal valve. This part coming off the cecum is called the appendix. You then have the ascending colon, the right or the hepatic colic flexure, the transverse colon, the left or the splenic colic flexure, and the descending colon. After the descending colon, you have the sigmoid colon. You then have the rectum, the anal canal, and the anus. Other parts of the large intestine that you should take note of is this line that's called the Teniae coli. You also have these units here all along that are called haustra. There's another part of the large intestine that you can't see on this model. It's called omental appendices, and they are globules of fat that come off the Teniae coli. You can see a picture here. These yellow portions, those are the omental appendices. So going back to the model, we have here the spleen, and we have here the pancreas. This region of the pancreas is the body, and this region is the tail. This part going into the small intestine is called the ampulla of Vader. Here, I'll take this off. And the sphincter that goes in between the pancreas and the duodenum is called the sphincter of Oddi. This duct here is called the pancreatic duct. We also have the liver. Looking at the liver, we can look at this model as well. So we have this area here, which is the bare area, and we have this ligament, which is the coronary ligament. On this side, you have the right triangular ligament, there's a ligament here, and the left triangular ligament. And by extension, this would be the right lobe, and this would be the left lobe. On the other side, you have the quadrate lobe, which is here, and the caudate lobe, which is there. Finally, you have the porta hepatis, which is similar to the hilum of the lung. It's where ducts and arteries and veins can go through the liver. This green part here is the gallbladder. There are 3 ducts in the bile pathway. The hepatic duct is this one, which goes into the liver, this green one here. The cystic duct is this one, which goes into the gallbladder. The common bile duct is this one, which comes out, and if you can see on this model, goes into the pancreas. So now we are going to discuss the vasculature, starting with the arteries. So first of all, this is the abdominal aorta. This here is the celiac trunk. Coming off the celiac trunk, you have the gastric artery, the splenic artery, and the hepatic artery. This right here is the superior mesenteric artery, and this right there is the inferior mesenteric artery. These are the renal arteries. Also on the lab, but not shown on this model, are the gonadal arteries. And these will be arteries that are long and thin and that come off the abdominal aorta and go down to the ovaries or the testes. So now let's talk about the veins. This is the inferior vena cava. This is the hepatic vein up here. These are the renal veins. The gonadal veins are not pictured like the arteries, but they are also long veins that go down to the testes or the ovaries. The hepatic portal system consists of 4 veins: the splenic vein, the inferior mesenteric vein, the superior mesenteric vein, and the hepatic portal vein. Here we can see the splenic vein, and we can also see the superior mesenteric vein, which is this group right here. However, on this model, we cannot see the inferior mesenteric vein or the hepatic portal vein. Here is a picture of what it might look like. This is the superior mesenteric vein, and this is the inferior mesenteric vein. These are the splenic veins, and this is the hepatic portal vein. So now let's talk about the renal structures. First of all, you will have a renal fat pad in between the kidney and the adrenal gland, which isn't on the model, but it's up on the top. This whole thing is the kidney. The outside of the kidney is called the capsule. This part going in here into the kidney is called the hilum. It's similar to the hilum of the lung. This outside region is called the cortex, and then these parts going in here are the columns. The inside region is called the medulla. These regions here are called the renal pyramids. And then holding the renal pyramids are the renal papillae, which are this inside part here, this lighter colored region. This part is called the renal pelvis. Inside the renal pelvis, you have calyces, major and minor. These large branches are the major calyx, and the smaller ones are a minor calyx, or minor calyces. This is the ureter. Like I said, on top you have the suprarenal or the adrenal glands. This white, stringy looking thing here is the nephron, and then this part is the collecting duct. So now we have the muscles of the abdomen. First of all, we have the external oblique, which is here. And then there are two other layers behind this. The internal oblique, which is going to go in this direction, and then the transverse abdominal, which is going to go in this direction. On top here, you have the rectus abdominis. And then on the back, which isn't shown on the model, we have the quadratus lumborum. There is a picture of what it'll look like though. And so that going up from the iliac crest up to the ribs is the quadratus lumborum. So because it's difficult to see connective tissue on a model, I put together some pictures that would help you kind of visualize where it would be. So first of all, we have the inguinal ligament, and that's the ligament from the anterior superior iliac spine down here to the pubis. So it's this right here. Next, we have the abdominal aponeurosis, and that's this white sheath here. It's kind of cut up into pieces, but it's this white layer on the top. The linea alba is this white line that separates the rectus abdominis. The rectus sheath can be shown in this picture. We have the anterior rectus sheath and the posterior rectus sheath, but below the arcuate line, you only have the anterior rectus sheath, and that's what the arcuate line indicates. You can also see the transversalis fascia on the very inside. It's also on this diagram. Next, we have the linea semilunaris, and those are the white bands on either side of the rectus abdominis, right here. And you have the umbilical ring, which is your belly button, that's in the middle. You also have your peritoneal membranes. So your visceral is the one touching the organs, so it would be this inner lining, and the parietal membrane would be this outside one. Next, you have your mesentery. Your mesentery is a sheath of connective tissue that surrounds your large intestine and small intestine. It's this big sheath here. Your greater omentum is this large apron of fat, and the lesser omentum is here above the stomach. Your omental bursa is here. It encloses the lesser omentum. This is your transverse mesocolon. It's the transverse colon. This is the transverse mesocolon, and we use that to help define our colic spaces. So this red part is our supracolic space. This yellow part is our infracolic space. And then on either side of the large intestine, we have the paracolic gutters here and here. This ligament here on the liver in the middle is the falciform ligament. This liver that helps support the uterus is the round ligament. And then you have three folds. You have your lateral umbilical fold, which is this one here. You have your medial umbilical fold, and you have your median umbilical fold. And that's all the parts of the connective tissue.